Let's start things off with a bang.
The Inciting Incident.
As I mentioned in my last video, different people use different terms. For me, the inciting incident happens at the beginning of your story. It can be the very first scene, or it can come after a bit of setup, establishing the world and your story and its characters at the end of the first sequence. It can be a simple image or line of dialogue,
Terminate with extreme prejudice.
or be played out in a full scene with exposition and backstory that sets everything up for what is to follow. But it generally comes down to one key moment that is the catalyst for your story. Sometimes the inciting incident has already happened when our story starts, perhaps immediately before.
I'm very, very sorry to tell you this, but your parents have perished in a fire that's destroyed your entire home.
Or even years before.
There's nothing fake about Truman himself.
It is revealed later in dialogue or flashback.
It's a life.
This approach can be risky and is usually found in drama or non-linear stories. Some stories bury their inciting incident so deep it becomes lost, or they put it in the wrong place, or leave it out altogether. The inciting incident is not essential. You could spend the first act establishing your world and characters with nothing untoward happening, establishing the status quo, and then introduce the crisis at the end of Act 1. That can work. It can also feel like a long, tedious setup, and you risk boring your audience until things really kick off. So, while not essential, it is highly recommended you have a clear inciting incident within the first 10 minutes of your film. Without it, your story may lack focus, with an unclear theme and character arc.
Where to start?
The inciting incident sets up your story, specifically the main problem or crisis of your story. It starts the momentum of action that will drive you to the end. Now, it may not have any effect on your main character just yet, but it will. And it will change their lives forever, usually in the worst possible way. It can be an accident or some other crisis, a death, a stranger coming to town, a choice that someone else has made.
Officials at the Pacific Nuclear Research Facility have denied the rumor that a case of missing plutonium was in fact stolen from their vault 2 weeks ago.
A case of mistaken identity. Whatever it is, this inciting incident somehow changes the world of your story. It upsets, or promises to upset, the fragile equilibrium of the world. And it will soon become very important to your protagonist. Because of it, they'll receive a job offer.
And if I could just persuade you to sign off on the park.
Embark on a quest.
What must I do?
Become caught up in something they don't understand, or try to keep their fragile world from changing around them. It can take many forms, and your main character can react to it in many ways. But fundamentally, the inciting incident is the thing that happens that kicks your story off. In genre films, action, thriller, horror, fantasy, and most sci-fi, the inciting incident is often clear and primal. A murder. A robbery. A fatal accident. A meteor crashing to Earth. An experiment gone wrong. It's visual, it's visceral, and it's something that will clearly have repercussions. But it can also be more subtle, something small or symbolic that is not yet understood. An image or a word that sparks a mystery.
Good luck, Harry Potter.
It may even happen off screen or in the past, though this can make it harder for your audience to understand what the story is about if it isn't made clear by the end of Act 1.
You're a wizard, Harry.
I'm a what?
Usually it's best to show it, or hear it, right at the start. Often in early drafts you may find yourself starting too soon, with a whole lot of setup and exposition that you just don't need. Find the thing that really kicks your story off and begin with that. The rest, if it's important, you can pepper throughout the story when it becomes relevant.
The inciting theme.
The inciting incident should also embody the theme of your story, not just by what it is, but in how it's portrayed. It sets the stakes for your main character, and those stakes should be personal and compelling. There are many ways you could present a death, for example, as an inciting incident. Have them on their deathbed as they breathe their last. Are they in hospital or at home? Show the funeral with the family and friends gathered. Show the ritual, or lack of it. Or perhaps start with the wake and the celebration of their life. Is the death meant to be sad or humorous?
There's someone alive in there!
Simon, where are you going?
What the hell is wrong with you all?
Does it affect lots of people or just one? Or you could not show the death at all, but show instead how people react upon hearing the news. Or, if the death itself isn't that important, at the reading of the will.
What does that mean, the last part? What does that mean?
It means that the estate, in excess of $3 million after expenses and taxes, will go into a trust fund for a beneficiary to be named in this document.
Who is that?
No, I'm afraid I can't tell you that.
How you portray your inciting incident helps tell us why it's important and why it matters to your protagonist. And it sets the stage for how you're going to tell this story, its genre, its theme, and even its style. How and where you start is just as important as how you end. And the two should connect, the inciting incident and the climax. The inciting incident sets up a promise that is at the heart of everything that follows. The climax fulfills that promise, or subverts it. But the two are connected. So if you're unsure about where to start your story, look at your ending. It's about setup and payoff. Till next time, I'm Phil Moore. Chukkas.